Shalom everyone, and this week we're reading Parashat Devarim, which is the first parasha in the book of Deuteronomy. Now, the book of Deuteronomy is called Mishneh Torah, which means repetition and secondary to the Torah, which means last Shabbat, yesterday, we just completed the main body of the Torah, 4 books, and the last book, the 5th one, which is basically, as it says in the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verse 1, אלה הדברים אשר דיבר משה אל כל ישראל, בעבר הירדן במדבר. These are the words, the things that Moses spoke to all of Israel across the river Jordan in the desert. Okay, which means from now on till the end of the book of Deuteronomy, which is going to be read on Simchat Torah, which is the last day of the high holidays of Tishrei. And that means when we finish this book, and the new year is starting legally. And that means that the cycle, one cycle is completed and a new cycle of Tikkun is starting. Why is that important? Because when you read the other words of the parasha, these are the words that Moses spoke to all of Israel, Be'ever Yarden, across the river Jordan, okay? So that we know that's where it happened, because we know it from the previous parashot. The Israelites crossed in from the desert and are right now camping across the river Jordan on the east side in front of Jericho. So why, the commentators are asking, why after saying Be'ever Hayden, across the Jordan, does the Torah or Moses add Bamidbar, in the desert, Barava, in the prairie, Mosuf, in front of the Red Sea, Ben Paran uven Tofel, between Paral and Tofel Velavan, Vechatzerot, Vedizahav, Dizahav, it's in the Sinai desert. All of these are places. Moses was not in all of these places at once. Why did he have to add all of these locations? Rashi, the greatest commentator of the Jewish Bible, the whole 24 books, and the Talmud, and many other things. So Rashi, he lived in France in the 11th century, still a bestseller, and he says, why did he mention all of these locations? And he says, "Umana kan kol hamekomot shechisu lifnei hamakom bahem." He basically mentions all the places the Israelites got into a conflict in front of God. Therefore, for Moses, that was mentioning all of those bad events in a very subtle, polite way. Still, he wanted to mention those events because he respected the nation of Israel, says Rashi. He basically quoting from a more ancient source in the Sifri. And he says, El Kol Israel, to all of Israel, because he wanted to include all of them together, so everyone has, they think of responsibility for each other. So if someone has an issue, says Rashi, he has a time to answer. Okay, so why is that? So why does he mention all of it? They didn't know that stuff. They knew all of that stuff. They studied that. So the Arizal, Rabbi Ezekloria, 16th century in Tzfat, is adding a very important message. With the message that he's adding over here is important for all of us, especially remembering that from now on, we are basically in the countdown. We're starting the countdown to the end of the year, which means we are just basically entering a time of looking backwards. Whatever have we done? You know, in every business, you have to look backwards to see what were the good things, the bad things, the mistakes. How do we learn? Why? Because you need to start preparing the coming year. And that is very important, because what we are going to do from now on till the end of the reading of the book of Devarim is basically determining, as we spoke about it in the previous week, in Matot Mas'ei, is determining what's going to happen in the coming year. So we are right now doing an audition, we are auditing, and we are collecting all the information. We're making some learning about ourselves. So because if you continue to do what you've used to do, you continue to get what you used to get. So some of the stuff that we get, we want to continue getting it. So don't change. But the things that you don't want to get anymore, you have to change, because if you continue to do what you used to do, you know the rest. So the first things, it's not that we need to hear what Moses said to the Israelites, because he was very polite for 40 years. He was pretty polite for the Israelites with all what they've done. Now, it's like his last days on earth. He's starting the reading. We read that in the Torah itself. He's starting his speech. It says in verse 3, chapter 1, verse 3, the 40th year of the Exodus, on the 11th month, okay, which is the month of Shvat, on the first day of the month, which means, when did Moses start his speech? On the first day of Shvat, Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Okay? And he left on the 7th of Adar, 6 weeks, 7th of Adar, 5 weeks later. 5 weeks later. So the question is, again, that we should ask, is that necessary for Moses right now? Is it because he's leaving, he has to mention to the Israelites all the mistakes basically their ancestors did? Because all the people who committed all of these sins that are being hinted over here, all of these people passed away during the 40 years in the desert. Moses is talking about things that happened 40 years ago, most of them. So why does he have to mention it to the people standing in front of him during these days? And the Arizal is explaining, no, this is a code. Yes, Moses is mentioning those events not in order to bash the Israelites and to make them feel bad after he held it inside for 40 years. We know holding this kind of stuff inside is not very healthy, and Moses is right now approaching his 120th birthday. Okay? So we have to remember that. But what the Rabbi Zakloria is explaining is like this. There's a code. And the code over here is like this. First of all, it was 11 days from Mount Sinai. That's what he says. That's verse 2. 11 days from Mount Sinai through the Mount of Seir, which is Edom. Okay, and again, the locations are kind of mixed up. What does it mean 11 days? It doesn't take 11 days from Sinai to where they're staying. It should have been more, so that some people say that was a miracle. Here, the Arizal is saying as follows. The number 11 is crucial for us to understand the picture. And the story is like this. When we are talking about the creation of the universe, and that's what Moses is talking about, we have to understand that the universe was created by the Creator himself. And since the Creator's giving is infinite, unlimited, without any boundary, his giving was infinite and unlimited, which means he gave us everything, all the possible good and bliss and pleasure that is available in the endless. Everything is in the endless. So he gave it to us, and therefore he created us with the will, the desire, the need to achieve, to receive, to get, to take pleasure, bliss, and any good feeling. That's how we structured. That's how we are programmed, and without it, we don't exist. And we can study a lot about that. But what's important for our case is that the fact that the world was created by the infinite creator, there's no way he created the universe less than perfect. And therefore, when we go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, there was a night, there was a day, one day, which means that everything was completely perfect already by verse 5 in chapter 1. So why do we need the rest of the story? Why do we need 5 books of Moses? 5 verses were enough. And the answer is that when the Creator created us, he gave us everything. And everything means he gave us himself. And that means, and it's hinted in the same chapter, that he gave us the image, his image, the image of God. And what, an infinite entity has no boundaries and no image, because image relates to definitions, finite boundaries. No. So we cannot talk about a physical image. We can talk only about a mental image, the mental image of the Creator. We learned so many times. We can define them in 3 aspects: being independent, being creative, and being a sharing being. And that means that we have the need to be independent, and that's why normal people don't like to be told what to do. Okay? We need to be creative, and that's why the nicest, happiest people are also very creative people. And also, we need to be sharing beings, because the Creator is a sharing being. Look at it, at the world he created. He shared all of that with us. And that means, and that's what's the most important thing, that we need especially to remember this time of the year. And it is that the universe was created in such a perfect state. However, we wanted to create on our own. We wanted to achieve our own independence by ourselves. And we wanted to share. And you cannot do all of these 3 when you are part of a universe that is finished and completed, and it's all one. There was a night, the creation. There was a day, the Creator, the receiving vessel, and the giving light. All were one. Everything was completed. There's no space for perfection. There's no space for giving, for creativity, or to achieve independence. Independence cannot be given. Independence must be achieved. Otherwise, this is not independence. So how did we come from a perfect state of a universe that is one? And that idea is being dealt with for thousands of years in Jewish theology, that everything starts with one, perfect oneness. However, that oneness means that the only way that the whole universe can be one is that the whole universe was in one point without any dimensions of space and time. Today, we can say the last 100 years, science is talking about the singularity, about that point that the whole universe started from, and like what everybody knows as the Big Bang. But before the Big Bang, the whole universe was one point. And what does it mean, a point? The moment it's bigger than a point, and it has a dimension of space or length that's more than 1 point. Okay, whoever learned geometry. So we have to start from 1 point. That is the only way to say that the whole universe is really, truthfully, one. Even though there was a Big Bang, and the world was fragmented into many, many, many endless pieces, all the galaxies and the planets and so on, and humans with different opinions and ideas about life and about everything, still everything started as one and is still one in a certain dimension. However, to give us the space to be creators of our own, that oneness had to be broken. And that's why on the second day of the creation, if you read the chapter 1 in Genesis, you see how God is just splitting and separating and breaking the perfection that used to be his creation. Why? So we can feel great about reaching our own independence, inventing our own creativity, and sharing on our own. And that, in order to get to that place, when you read Rabbi Isaac Luria's teachings in the Tree of Life, for instance, his great book, he speaks about what happened before the Big Bang, whatever before, what created, how this 1 point of the creation, the creator came into being, okay, and how it was broken into pieces, and that was not a simple thing. It took dozens and hundreds of dozens of stages of evolution. Why? Do you think it's easy to take total oneness, harmony, and completion and perfection and to create a new universe in which there's so many conflicts, so many misunderstandings, so much pain, so much removal from whatever is godly? That creation of what we know as a fragmented, aching universe, that was a very hard task to achieve. And in the Tree of Life, Rabbi Isaac Luria is giving us the evolutionary process that basically generated the illusion. Why illusion? The illusion of pain, the illusion of suffering, the illusion of negativity, because the universe is still one. Because there's a rule, very important rule, when you study Kabbalah, there's the same way there's a rule in physics that says that there's no loss of matter, the law of preservation of matter and energy. There's also a rule in the spiritual world that says that there's the preservation of states. Whatever new state that appears does not replace the previous one, the Arizal is teaching us. It's only being added on top of it. So it hides, covers the previous state, which means the state of perfection and unity that was and is the basis of the whole universe is still existing. It's there for us to tap into. We need simply to reach out from our own perception of chaos and pain and injustice in order to reach that. And basically, this is the whole name of the game. And this is what Moses is trying to give the Israelites as his legacy, which means we live in a universe that the foundations of this universe are perfect, just, peaceful, and complete, without no need to change. However, we were thrown in a universe in which we have to recreate the perfection so we can own it, so we can enjoy it finally. What does it mean? So Rabbi Azaklo is saying the words that Moses is using in describing the journey and basically where it says over here, in such a eloquent way, across the river Jordan, in the desert, in the prairie, in front of the Red Sea, and so on. All of these are basically mentioning the different stages of evolution that the universe had to go through so humanity will find itself in that universe of fragmentation and chaos and pain and disorientation. So when we find a way back to the real true source of the universe, and we can reconnect to real true source of the creation, we can finally enjoy and fulfill the wish of the Creator when He created the universe, which was only one: to share pleasure with His creatures. Because mitchunat hatov leitiv, whoever is good can only give good to others. You know that, everybody knows this. When we are in a very positive state of mind, which means we feel happy, lucky, secure, full of positive energy, we are capable only of being kind and generous to others and be compassionate. Okay, so if God is the Almighty, the Endless, the source of all of everything, and He is the Endless, okay, He is the good, only good can come out of Him. So where is the evil coming from? Oh, that was a real great startup. Why? Why there was a need for the startup? We have to remember, without evil, without injustice, without separation, without need and lack and hunger and starvation, where there's no way that we, humanity, we can make our way to the Creator. And as the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto of the 18th century, taught us that the Creator created a whole cascade of stages that Moses is speaking about, of breaking the universe into small pieces, fragmentation and chaos. So finally, in the end of the evolutionary process, we will come out with so much confusion and negativity that will be separated from the Almighty. Why is that a great thing? Because only when we are separated from the Almighty, there is a worth, there is a victory, there is a prize that is called reaching to the Almighty and reconnecting to Him. And that is the journey of every human being. And as long as you do not understand the name of the game, there is no other game. This is the only game. No other games. If you do not understand that this is the game, you'll be confused forever. You'll feel pain and misery forever, because the source of pain and misery is that we are disconnected from Him, from the source of all that is good. And therefore, He cannot force us to take it, to take His bliss. Why? Can you force somebody to be independent? Did you ever try to force somebody to be happy? Okay. Did you get hurt because of that? For sure. Why? Because it's against the nature of the universe. You cannot force people to be happy. You cannot be successful for somebody else. You have to do it for yourself on your own. You come, each one of us, is a result of a long evolutionary chain of getting away from the source, from the Creator. So it's not really evolution, it's a devolution. Okay? Till we come to a universe that is our universe. The pain, the agony, the misery and the suffering and the darkness, it's ours. First, we have to acknowledge that it is ours. Second, we have to acknowledge that we're here, far away, disconnected, so we can make our way back, reconnect And now the connection to the Almighty and His bliss will be ours and ours alone. As Rabbi Ashlag teaches, when you see that wonderful connection to the light of the creation, and you see that how everything is connected to oneness and perfection. It was your eyes that will see that and no one else's. Because whatever you see, you cannot really make other people see. You can support them in their journey to see that. So part of the breaking of the completion into fragmentation, that was the story of that we read in the book of Genesis, in the story of the kings of Edom that reigned and died and reigned and died. Why do we need to learn about these kings? And basically what the Zohar is teaching us, that these kings that reigned and died, they're talking about the vessels of reality, the vessels of the body, the vessels of a physical universe, that when they were created, they were instilled with endless light, could not handle that, and then they broke down, which is called died. All what we see around, and as we spoke about it in the previous class, last week, Parashat Matot Mas'ei, we see the judgments. And what are the judgments? These are the blockages that have been generated by the separation between our reality and the perfect reality that is always there. You know, can somebody change the endless? Of course not. If you change it, it's not the endless anymore. Okay? So change can apply only to finite beings. So when we say that the whole universe started with this singularity, that point of endless completion, peace, and wholeness of the Creator and His creatures, when we speak about the Big Bang and the process that happened after it did not come to replace the endless, it came to hide the endless, to cover up. Why? If we were born with this endless faith that the whole universe is one and complete, how would we able ever to gain our connection independently to the endless? So our job is not to create the endless, but to reveal the endless. And that's the journey for faith that every human being must go through, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So now, the book, the Parashat Devarim, is being read always on the Shabbat that is called Shabbat Hazon. When we are talking about Shabbat Hazon, this is the last Shabbat in the 3 weeks of judgments. And every time when we come to that Shabbat, when we come to the end of the 3 weeks, the memories, the stories, the traditions, the customs, it's all about reminding us all the calamities, all the broken vessels that Moses is speaking about it. So how many broken vessels were there? And Rabbi Zohar is teaching us about there are 7 broken vessels. These are the 7 kings of Edom that died. But there are also 4 torn vessels. And together 4 plus 7, this is the 11 days from Chorev. Chorev means in Hebrew Mount Sinai. But also, if you know really good Hebrew, Chet Reish Bet means also destruction, Churban. God destroyed His universe. Didn't really destroy it, as we said. He created a new existence that the perfection is destroyed, so we can perfect it and reconnect to Him. So, basically, our tikkun, our correction, is to be able to realize that God's perfection is eternal. It's always there, always welcoming us. Same thing if you understand the Hebrew meaning of the world to come. In Hebrew, it's the world that keeps on coming. Olam haba. The word that is coming in, always coming in, which means the world of perfection is coming at us. The question is, do we welcome it? And this is basically the journey each one of us must take on his own. So, yes, the destruction, the calamities, the pain, the suffering, the misery, it's all there, but he hinted, says the Arizal, Ramaz shebahem talui geulatenu, but our redemption is dependent in us understanding the story, understanding the story behind what's happening. שעד שיכלו נשמות שבגוף הזה של הקליפה ועולים בכל יום לקדושה, which means the journey of humanity is basically to achieve complete faith, unconditional love, and reconnection to the endless bliss of the Creator. How do we do that? So, we have to fix the broken vessels. We are the broken vessels. How do we fix the broken vessels? And that is what this 3 weeks about. It's all about sweetening the judgments. When judgments happen, when things are not comfortable and not easy, this is our test, because it's not our test, this is our task. Which means our task is when we approach, experience the judgment, the dis-ease, the negativity, whatever, we have to face it, acknowledge it, recognize it, disassociate from it, and ascend to a place of acceptance, love, faith, and hope. When we do that, when we transform that negativity, that's called sweetening of the judgments. We have to do it every stage in our life, which means what they say, it's about turning the lemon into a lemonade, or no pain, no gain. You can hear about it in every culture and every society. You want to achieve something, not for free. For free, you can get only troubles, say the Zohar. So, people say, but there are people, they just get things for nothing. Nobody gets things for nothing. The question is, first of all, what is it that you want to reach? And what you want to reach is not mountains of gold and silver and diamonds and whatever, all kinds of precious stuff, and people's admiration and envy. That's not the goal. That's not even a mean. The goal, as we just explained, is to realize that all of that is the game. And we have to play the game. And playing the game means whatever is happening, learning how to sweeten the judgments. Which means, they call it, if you make a research, there is a whole science about that calls it neurotheology. Which means, what is the neurologic aspect beyond theology? What is theology? That's a science of religion. Okay? Does anything special happen specially when somebody experiences a divine experience? And the answer is, since we have CT of the brain, we can check it out. And when we check it out, we realize that when a person is experiencing chaos, hatred, fear, confusion, anger, all of those very primordial, not nice feelings that are very devastating, by the way, as everybody knows, we experience that in the back brain, in the more primitive brain. However, people who are trained, simply trained in focusing, meditating, contemplating on a holy object, a concept, a vision, a feeling, something of divinity, they can, that is being created as you train in your frontal lobe, and I spoke about it before. Now, people who experience that a lot, simply who train a lot to connect to the divine, their frontal lobe will be thicker and more developed than other people according to that science of neurotheology. And when a person experiences all of that anguish and negativity and fragmentation and pain and despair about life, why there's no justice and how come, this is when a person is basically subjugated to his primitive urges. That's normal, but it's not nice. It doesn't feel great. Who wants to feel like this? In order to redeem yourself from that, you need to exercise, study and meditate and contemplate on holy objects, which means holy ideas, connecting to the divine, contemplating and meditating and praying to where you want to go. You know, if you focus on where you want to go, there's a possibility you're going to get there. But if you focus on what you don't like, you probably stay there because that's where you go. You know, somebody who's walking on a tightrope between two towers. There's one rule that you should keep very strongly, which is you have to focus all the time on where you want to go. You can't look down because where you look, that's where you go. So if you want to go down, which means fall and die, look down. If you want, which means if you look where you're afraid you're going to, that's where you're going to. Asher Yagorti Bali. What comes to me is what I was afraid of, which means my fears are basically focusing on the pain, and that brings the reality of pain. While when you focus on your vision, where you want to get, where you want to reach, seems to be that has an effect on the structure of your brain. And when somebody is exposed to pain and suffering, but he has the experience, because he did it all his life, to remove himself from focusing on what's wrong, but focusing what is our vision, what is the person I would like to become, what's the connection I want to achieve with the Almighty. The moment we can awaken that thought in our frontal lobe, it shuts down the noise in the back brain. This is so important because when people move on and go on to develop that, the research is showing that the stronger the vision is and the more developed that part of the brain, the frontal lobe, even when things happen and they're very upsetting for most people, those people who train themselves connecting to God, they don't feel the distress that much. It's like a faraway noise. Oh, okay, let's move on. So basically the book of Devarim is all about Moses' legacy, which he basically lives for all of humanity till the coming of the redemption. That's his legacy. Now that was 33 centuries ago. And yes, humanity is moving forward because we are not that chaotic as we used to be. We're not perfect yet. Oh, there's so much imperfection, but we are much more aware of what we want than before. But we have one little issue. And the issue is that we need badly to know the picture that we hear, and that is really important, that we hear just for that purpose. Which means a student of mine called me a few days ago, and he said that in his business there's a very bad atmosphere, very heavy. People feel things are not moving on and so on. So I told him, look, these are the 3 weeks. And the 3 weeks, especially more than any time, other time, you can sweeten the judgment. But how are you going to sweeten the judgment? You have to make everybody in your company to commit that we come to work only for one purpose: to be nice to each other, to be kind to each other, and to the customers, and to anybody we're in touch with. And if somebody is feeling, getting up in the morning on the way to work, that he cannot commit to that, he just feels that he's just going to be full of rage, and he's going to scream and yell and speak badly to customers and colleagues and stuff like this, don't come to work. Stay home. You don't want to destroy it for everybody else. And if you guys are going to commit as a community of the people who work together to be nice to each other, do the extra mile, just to be nice to each other, you'll see how the bad luck that you're experiencing right now will turn into amazing great luck. And I know companies who did that, and the results were always amazing. Not just that they did stuff and they were able to overcome very, very hard challenges, they also made, in the long run, they made a much, much more money than other companies that did not do that. So we have to understand that the perception of reality is so crucial. And then, so that is the beginning of the parasha, and it covers up the whole book, by the way, and especially this week, because the Shabbat that we read, Parashat Devarim, this parasha, is always the Shabbat before the 9th of Av. And the 9th of Av, which is a terrible day, and as again, it arouses a lot of painful questions. Why? Where was God when? Where is justice? If God is almighty and is so powerful and so loving, how did he allow A, B, C, D, and so much atrocities, pain, suffering? And the answer is in that parasha, that yes, God does not interfere in the game. It does. Things happen not by mistake. But they're there. The interference is not to prevent us. You know, as a parent, you always have that urge to prevent any kind of discomfort to your children. You'll do anything possible so they do not have to go through events, challenges that are very painful. Why? You can't stand that idea. You go crazy as a parent, thinking about that your child is going through something that is very painful. Okay? But is that possible? Can parents really shield their children that they will never feel any discomfort? We know it's impossible. You just go to the kindergarten when you're really small, a toddler, and always already in the beginning, another toddler is taking your toy away without asking you, and you cry. You can't just have your child live in a bubble without any discomfort. But there's anguish. We have in this world to understand that the anguish and the discomfort and the pain and the misery and the conflict, they're part of our everyday because that's the only ticket we can use in order to ascend. Because only by turning the darkness into light and the bitterness into sweet, we can really earn our reconnection to the network of the endless bliss and greatness of the Creator. What can we do? Especially this part of the year, that the memories of so much pain, the destruction of the first temple and the exile, the first exile, that basically a lot of Jewish communities till the 40s and 50s were there since the first temple's destruction. We're talking about the communities in Iraq, in Iran, in the part of North Africa, in Yemen. They were there from the destruction of the first temple. Okay? And was that a nice journey? No, it was full of massacres and persecutions and discrimination and injustice. And not so many survived. There were times there were millions of Jews in Iraq and Iran of today, and only when we're talking about the 1950s, there were maybe, altogether between Iraq and Iran, maybe there were 300,000, okay, Jews. So that was very painful. And what about the journey of the rest of the communities that went from Israel to Europe after the destruction of the first temple, the second temple, and atrocities that went through in Europe? All of them, and there's so many of them were just aligned with these 3 weeks. So how do you relate to it? You just think about these stories, and Moses is speaking about those moments of pain and anguish in their journey. Why raising it? Because the question will be raised all the time. Where was God? And the answer, God was there all the time, just leading us to those moments so we can choose to take responsibility for those moments, to be independent, and to basically resist the thought of pain and misery, to resist that idea that that pain is eternal and was forever, will be forever. No, the big revolution happened 100 years ago in science. The world started from a perfect state of one point of endless unity and perfection. Now science believes that. It's not just the Kabbalists who speak about it. And then that completion came to a demise, and the world started to be created the way we know it. But there is an evolution process. Things are improving and improving all the way till we come back to realizing how we are one, how united we are. And you see that in history today, people can realize that we all depend on each other. One nation is dependent on another nation. I spoke about it so many times that we are all, Rabbi Ashlag spoke about it 80, 90 years ago, that we now realize that there's a crisis in South America or in Russia or in China, the whole world will suffer. So everyone must pray for the bliss, the success of all other nations, because when all other nations flourish and bloom, each one of us, basically in return, will feel better, because our world will be much better when everybody is successful, when everybody supports everybody else. Does that mean that everybody's having that sanity of learning? You can't hurt other nations, you can't just fight. Everybody knows that to fight and to kill and to go into wars, it's only crazy people who do that. Remember that till a century ago, people were proud. There were people still were proud that they go and wage a war against other nations to take whatever they have and to step on them. There were ideologies that still were around this world. Today, it's not so nice anymore because the world is moving forward. Okay, so this is one important thing, that Moses is basically preparing not just the Israelite nation for the journey. he's leaving. And basically the previous 40 years since the Exodus were kind of heavens. Oh, there were a few mistakes, but manna from heaven, water from the rock, the clouds of honor that surrounded the camp, and basically that was post-traumatic um, um, treatment for the Israelites after being slaves, suffering so much for centuries in Egypt. Now you're ready to live life the way they should be lived, which means you have to deal with the discomfort, we have to deal with the pain, you have to deal with the injustice, and you have to ascend above it. You have to use those emotions as opportunities to elevate up and above. Elevating up and above in Hebrew, there's one word for that: nes, a miracle. What's a miracle? Lanus v'leitnoses, to flee up and above the box. How do you do that? When you exchange the emotions of I'm right, it's bad, it's negative, they abuse me, and so on, you exchange it into it was all good for good purpose, and I choose to be the person I want to be, the wise, enlightened person who looks backwards and says it was all for the good, because without the pain, without the pressure, without the atrocities, I would not feel the push and the drive to move forward and to change. So that's how we have to look at our lives. I cannot without finishing with a study of Ohev Israel, Dr. Rabbi, that explains, is the best one to put together the idea of how does that all come and manifest in the coming Shabbat. It is called Shabbat Hazon. Yeah, we read Parashat Devarim, but we call it Shabbat Hazon. Hazon means vision. So Shabbat Hazon הוא יותר גדול במעלה מכל שבתות השנה. Shabbat Hazon is greater in power, positive power, than all the Shabbatot of the year. על דרך שנשאלתי פעם אחת לבאר המדרש, דהית שם, לא היה יום מועד לישראל, כיום שנערך בית המקדש עד כאן. In the Shulchan Aruch, the book of all the laws of Judaism that was written by Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo in the 16th century. Okay, Saif Taf Kuf Nun Tet, verse 559. Okay, number 4, verse number 4 in that verse. It says that the 9th of Av was on Shabbat. The destruction of the temple was on Shabbat. And that day was the greatest holiday Israel ever had, which sounds so crazy. והוא פלא, and it's a wonder. וכבר עמד בזה בעל המחבר משנה למלך בספרו התאור פרשת דרכים עיין שם. ונבשום שכל והרת לב יוצא לנו בזה על דרך מאמר חז"ל. It says in the Talmud, Tractate Yevamot, page 62b, that when a person goes to the journey, when, a married man goes to the road, the ancient times, you could take a boat. It would take like a few weeks, maybe months, till you got to your destination. And then you could stay there for a year or two, or maybe more, doing your business. And then, by the time you came back, it was already a few years. So, it says, the Talmud says in Tractate Yevamot, as we said, page 62b, that he has, the person before leaving to the journey, he has to be with his wife. לפקוד את אשתו. והמשכיל יבין. And what does it mean? I have to explain. He said, like, you know, if you're smart, you'll understand. And the answer is like this. A woman that her husband went for a journey, for business, or for any kind of other mission. And it could be years. You know, sometimes the person went to, we're talking about Israel, you could go to India, you could go to Spain, you could go to Germany. There was trade, okay? And it took years till they came back. How would a woman, without WhatsApp, without telephone, SMS, whatever, how can she hold on to her loyalty to continue the household, knowing that he will come back in a few years? And there were many, many disasters on the road, okay? It was not safe as today. How would she be able to stay with that hope, with a certainty that he's coming back? So, what the Talmud is saying, that God will help him, and when he's together with his wife, before he leaves, there will be some unusual power transmitted from the husband to the wife, and that power will hold her certainty, hope, and trust that he's coming back. Okay? Why is that brought over here? When we understand that Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, was the place in which God, the husband, was connected to the wife, his creation, humanity, the earth. And when was that connection happening? Where was it happening? In the temple. That's why King Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem. That's why Moses built the Mishkan, the tabernacle, in the desert. To have this kind of a device that has the ability to bridge the gap between the creation and the creator. Remember what we said? Why there was a disconnection? The disconnection was created so we can bridge the gap, and by this we can earn the connection. And the temple was there as the major tool to do that. But when the temple was destroyed, it's like a divorce. But it was not a divorce. There was no divorce. There's an eternal alliance between the Creator and His creation. Okay? So that is, or could be, compared to the story in the Talmud about the husband that goes away for a long journey. And if he went away for a long journey, and Shabbat is the day that the bride and the groom get together, because this is how Shabbat is being considered, as a real connection between the heaven and the earth, till a real completion. So that day of the 9th of Av, some 1930 something years ago, no, 50 years ago, in the year 70, that day was the day in which the Creator joined humanity, His creation, His nation, in the strongest connection ever. Why? Because that union had to last till the redemption. Which means if we ask, how come thousands of years of persecution, pain, misery, all what can give a person the greatest doubts about is there a God? Why, if there is a God, why there's a Holocaust? Why there's so much destruction and pain? Okay? In order to be able to withstand, to be immune to all of those pains and controversy that you experience inside yourself when you see injustice. What gave us the vision that strong vision that no matter what, the Messianic days will be coming. We don't know when, but they're coming and things are just getting better. That force was given to us in that union that happened on the last day of the temple in Jerusalem. On that horrible Shabbat, almost 2,000 years ago, that union was so strong. How do we know it was strong enough? It lasted till today. And when you see today how the world is moving forward so fast, and things are happening, and people are more and more aware. Yes, there's a lot of negativity around. Yes, but there's a lot of awareness that was never there before. And when you see right now that the prophecies of Isaiah and Jeremiah, Ezekiel and Micha and Zechariah, all of those great prophets thousands of years ago, we're talking about more than 26 centuries ago. Okay? 26, 27, 28, 3,000 years ago. All of these prophecies, the prophecies in the 5 books of Moses, are really happening in front of our eyes. Okay? How? In what power? That power that was instilled in us on that 9th of Av, year 70. That union. And that gave us the vision to move on no matter what. Yeah, many Jews lost it. They gave up, assimilated, stopped fighting. Okay, we're out. But still, there was still always enough to continue reading, learning, studying, and believing, having the vision that whatever we see is just part of the road to redemption, completion, eternal love, and whatever. So, that's why this Parashat Devarim is always being read on this Shabbat, Shabbat Hazon, Shabbat of the Vision. And why is it stronger than any holiday? Because you have to remember, on Rosh Hashanah, we get the life, and on Yom Kippur, we get life and all what we need from the Creator to live another year. Okay? Every holiday gives us some strength and power for that year. That's the only holiday that gave us strength for 2,000 years. Which means, as Rabbi Zohar is teaching, whatever happens in the past, whatever happened in the past, is still impressed in the universe till today. That occasion, that power that happened then, reappears, it's like imprinted on the disk of the universe. And every year on Shabbat Hazon, the same power is appearing again. So what is this week about? Taking to ourselves till the 9th of Av, just that we're here to turn negativity into positivity. There's no justification to be annoyed, upset, never, okay? But especially we have to be focused during these coming days till the 9th of Av, to realize that whatever is happening, there's one purpose, so we can transform the negativity into positivity, and we cannot do it in the first second, so try again and again, because the moment you re-establish the line of connection, you know what's the shorish of the word tikva, hope, kav, a line of connection. What is hope? That you have a line of connection. Vekovei Hashem yachlifu koach. The ones who have a line to God, they will always have the ability to recuperate, refresh, and continue the journey. And that's what the word tikva is about. And the anthem of Israel is a tikva, the hope. We're talking about the same force that pushed us and is still pushing us, believing in faith that sooner or later we will see how the world is becoming positive, happy, and redemption will be there. So that is opportunity to basically fill the batteries with that kind of energy that will last for till the coming of the Mashiach. Thank you so much. Have a great week.